And my name is Reginald Watts, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. I was raised well. I had an older sister and 3 older brothers. So I was the baby. So I had my way pretty much, and I had the protections in the street. I had 3 big brothers out there. And when I say street, I don't mean doing the wrong thing. I mean, when I went to the park, I played park ball. My brothers did too, so I was Lil Watts. For years and years, even today, sometime when I go back to New Orleans, Lil Watts. So my older brother friends still call me Lil Watts, and that was an honor, as my brothers were great men. My mom and dad, ironically, are from Mississippi. My mom was from Drew, 7 miles from where I work at now, going to Texas Southern University at the age of 17. And in my junior year there, it was what they call freebasing, now it's crack. And I tried it at a fraternity party. Didn't care for it. A couple of months later, maybe a month and a half later, I tried it again. And as with just about anything, if you try it long enough, eventually you'll go beyond just the trial era of it. And so I started doing it on, every other weekend. I started doing it every weekend. And then I threw a Thursday in with the weekend, which now made it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I only had 3 days. I started dropping classes. And when I ran out of money and ran out of lies to get money, I started stealing. Stealing turned into bigger things. And I can remember one time, it was more than a swindle. There was no violence to it other than scaring somebody. And I made this guy think that I had a weapon. I didn't have a toothpick. And he put everything on the ground and he took off running. And I guess you could say that was my first robbery. I got in trouble. I was in Houston, I got in trouble. My brother there, I had 2 brothers there, they both said, it's time for you to go back to New Orleans because you're going to get killed here. Off to New Orleans I go. Back to my family home, back to my room I grew up in, back to my old stomping grounds. But I didn't do drugs in New Orleans, so I brung this with me. And for a couple of weeks I did nothing, but then I started using there. My dad had a very lucrative business, and it was easy for me to get money. Yeah, I almost wrecked the business in less than 6 months. I still was, then I started going to jail. And I had a girlfriend that had money. She would bond me out. My parents every now and then would bond me out. And then the bonds started getting greater and greater. So I ended up going to a rehab to avoid going to jail. Well, the rehab was in Mississippi, Van Cleve down south. When I got out to rehab, I went to Hattiesburg, and there I robbed a cab driver. A couple of days later, the cab driver saw me going into a hotel. So the hotel was surrounded by police. I went to jail. I did 8.5 months, and the guy stopped coming to the court. So they said, look, if you take a simple assault, credit for time served. Well, I was wanted in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, and Orleans Parish, Louisiana. So I took the 8.5 months, and I told my lawyer, I said, call Jefferson Parish, don't call Orleans. They called Jefferson Parish, come got me later that day. I stayed in there for 3 months. The robbery charge, they dropped it to simple robbery. 11.5 months, 1 year credit for time service, I got out. They called Orleans Parish said, we don't want him. That should have been my call to develop my relationship with God. After all I had done, the slate was clean. Well, I didn't. I got out a couple of days later, I was getting high again. And several months later, I got arrested for 2 counts of armed robbery, 1 count of simple robbery, attempt. Didn't have a weapon, but a weapon implied. So they was going to give me 18 years, 6 on each charge. The day that I went to take the 18, because it was either 18 or 45, I was going to take the 18, do 9 on 18 under the 138 Act. you do half your time. Well, my lawyer came out and she said, we was in court, me and some other guys chained. She said, 6 years. I said, I know, ma'am. She said, no, not 6 on every charge, just 6, and you're gonna do 3. Well, I had been in jail a couple of years. Another act of God sparing His grace, His mercy. So I did the 3 years. I got out 48 days. I was 223 pounds. I was healthy. And I had been working out. I had an 18-inch neck. I just couldn't wait to get back and show the girls and the guys, you know. Well, 48 days later, I was picked up for more robberies, possession of crack cocaine, possession of a weapon, attempt escape, and falsifying identification. I was 159 pounds. I went from 223 to 159 in 48 days. When they weighed me in with the mugshot, I was 159. And so the judge deemed me a threat to society, a menace, habitual offender act. I received a life sentence. In Louisiana, life sentences don't have parole. So I had life without probation, without parole, without suspension of sentence. And the judge even told me, he said, you're gonna die in prison. Off to Angola I go. And I did 25 years there. Before, I had no probation, so I had to appeal to, my first year appealing to the governor, I was denied. And when you have a life sentence in Louisiana, you get denied, you have to wait 5 years before you can appeal again. It was 2013 when I first applied, it was 2018 when I applied the second time, and I was granted a hearing. Now you go before a 4-panel or 5-panel board. If you go before a 4-panel, you have to have everyone vote yay. If you go before a 5, you have to have 80%, which is 4. Well, the grace of God was working again. All 5 voted yeah, and there's opposition. There's a seat for opposition. Seats. There's one guy there, and when they asked him, what opposition, what do you have to say? He said, he looked at the board, he said, nothing. I have nothing to say. Got up and walked out. Yeah, so now I got a date. I'm waiting on my date. I mean, my paper goes to the governor, sits on his desk. Less than 1% of pardons get signed. And the governor signed mine in record time. Yeah. And so yes, all God, the whole thing. And I didn't tell you the part about getting shot while I was out there. Yeah, I got shot for robbing a guy. He caught up with me some time later. Yeah, and he shot me and could have killed me, but grace of God. I had been out of jail 2 hours. I was riding with my mentor, going to his house in Houston. I had my interstate compact. I wasn't going back to New Orleans. Even though they held a family house for me, I wasn't going back. So I went to Houston. 2 hours into the drive, we was in Lake Charles. I get a call. Mike Barber gets a call on the Bluetooth. I know nothing about Bluetooth. I hear this familiar voice. I'm just gonna call it an intercom, a speaker. And I said, that sounds like Warden Kane, who was over the prisons in Louisiana. He was over Angola, but then he was over, and is now over all the prisons in Mississippi. And I hear him tell Mike, he says, I hear you, Reginald Watts got out, your main man, Reginald Watts got out of jail. And Mike said, yeah, he's in the truck with me now. You want to speak with him? So I'm leaning forward, looking to grab him something. I don't know any better. I've been locked up a long time, since the mid-90s, wasn't no Bluetooth. And so he tells me this, he said, hey, we need you. I need you. I said, what you need, Warden? He said, I need you to go to Mississippi and be a chaplain in the prison. I knew that 2 of our guys that got out was there. They had just started this program. Matter of fact, we are the only program, we're the only guys in the United States who came fresh out of jail to be chaplains. Nowhere else have done it, no other states. They have guys that have went to jail, but they have been out of jail some years. Mississippi has adopted it, and so I told him no. I said, Warden, I love you like a big brother, like a father figure, but I cannot go back into the jail. He said, well, we're doing for Mississippi what we did in Louisiana. I said, that's a great thing. I said, but I can't do it. I said, man, I love you. He said, well, Jesus needs you. Jesus needs you. He threw the Jesus play into it. I said, Warden, I said, do me this. I said, give me time to call my prayer partners, the ones that prayed me out of prison, and let me see what they say. Let they see. And so everybody, my brother had me a phone, so I had a phone as soon as I touched down in Houston. Everybody called and said, in the next 2.5 days, God said, go to Mississippi. My fiance at the time, who was my wife now, she was the last one. She didn't want me to go. So I said in my mind, if she calls and says that God told her don't go, that's the minority, me and her, not all them other people that called, not all them other pastors and churches. She called, she said, baby, she said, God told me to tell you go to Mississippi. I wanted to just cry. I didn't want to go to Mississippi. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to a prison. I didn't want, even though I've been with Mike Barber in prison ministry, it wasn't every day in the prisons. This was every day in the prison. And so I'm here to tell you it's the greatest decision besides my salvation and marrying that woman. It's the greatest decision I ever made. Each morning I'm excited about going to work. Each morning I'm excited about seeing the guys with the same hope that I had when I was incarcerated, when we came from the bottom to the top. When Angola was a bloody mess when I got there in the 90s. If anybody in there fool with me, I'm gonna kill them. I'm not taking nothing off of anyone. I'm telling myself this. I didn't go there saying Jesus is Lord. I went there saying that I'm not gonna die at the knife of another inmate, another convict. Mind you, I had a life sentence. I was sentenced to die there. Became a senior pastor. They voted me in without I told him, I said, I had to check with God. He said, well, we already did. And so less than a year there, matter of fact, 9 months after being there, I became a senior pastor. And I was senior pastor, and then one of my members asked me to go. And I said, no, we're going to Kairos. I said, that's for, I'm a senior pastor. Let somebody else get that experience. I didn't know. I had signed guys up for my congregation over the years. I had listened to guys come back from Kairos, but it was always kind of abstractly. It wasn't like, hey man, tell me about Kairos. It wasn't like that. And so the guy, he told me, he said, Pastor, he said, I can't explain Kairos to you. I can't explain what Kairos is. He said, but man, you need to go. So after him digging for a couple of days, every time he saw me, I signed me up, I'll go. And so I went reluctantly and expecting church. Didn't get into it. It wasn't church. It was love from the moment you came in that Thursday night. People waving and cookies. You got cookies the first night as well. All the way to that Sunday when you walk into and there's outsiders in there, and the moment that the first person steps in, they're cheering for you. But the experience of Friday and Saturday changed my life forever. The love, I have to reiterate, the love that was displayed from the tray of food before you. And some people laugh at food, you're talking food, but if we follow Jesus' walk, he was always sitting and eating. He was always feeding. We had some of the toughest guys in Angola that was on that walk with me. One of them I watched because I thought he wasn't there for the right reason. And I said, he's gonna pull something off before this thing is over. Somebody's gonna get hurt. I watched him without watching. Inconspicuously, I watched him. And I remember we was reading these letters and I wanted to cry. This little girl wrote that letter in the God's rainbow. She drew a rainbow, it's a blue piece of paper. She drew a rainbow, she drew a rabbit, and she drew a flower. And she says, God's rainbow, God's flower, God's bunny rabbit. And I don't know why, it just melted me. She was 4 years old, her name was on it, Kayla, I think it is. And I have it somewhere around the house. I have to dig it out because I bring it with me. And I watched him, because I had watched him the whole time. And he was crying. He wasn't just crying, he was sobbing. His body was, and they was hugging him, and he was letting people, he didn't let people hug him. He had been in Angola since the 70s. And so he came in as a juvenile in the 70s, and he was tough. And he was broken. And then my tears started. I was crying because of what I was reading. I was crying because of all the love, and I was crying because he was broken. And I had asked him to come to church a few times, and he would sit at the back of the church. He would listen to a word I said that I preached, but he came out of respect. You know, when church was over, he'd be the first one out the door. Never had a chance to talk with him about how you liked the service or any of that. I remember talking to him after Kairos. I didn't dare talk to him while Kairos was still going on, but I remember talking to him, and he said, man, I don't know. I said, Pastor Watts, I don't know, man. I tell you that he got saved. Not right then, but down the road, I baptized him. This guy helped to change. And remember, I was a senior pastor and I was preaching. I was saved. And I always thought that Kairos, because I would pick guys that were struggling with the gospel. Not reading, but struggling how to live the gospel. So those were the guys that I put. I had guys come to ask me, my deacons and things. I said, well, no, let's try to get some of these guys who don't know. So those were the people that I was signed. They would let me do half, and then security would pick some, and Kairos accepted whoever we sent. Well, I thought I was sending somebody in to get saved, you know, but Kairos, a bunch of people do get saved from Kairos, but Kairos didn't come in preaching the gospel like I thought. They came in just loving on us. People need to go to Kairos outside. And those of us that was inside definitely need to go to Kairos inside. They're gonna win. They can't miss you. Kairos can't miss you. I don't care what attitude you have going in. You can be skeptical as I was, nonchalant as I was, interpreting what Kairos, you can go in with any of that. You can actually go to Kairos with a blindfold on, and you still would benefit from the things that happens in Kairos. I guarantee it. Those people that was like me, that can care less about Kairos, that think Kairos can do nothing for them, I think I said this, but I want to reiterate this. Take care, be careful, and go to Kairos. Be careful to not prejudge. Don't overthink it, and let Kairos do what it does. For a guy that was saved, that didn't think he needed Kairos, God knew that there was a hole in my armor that needed to be filled, and only Kairos could fill that void. No woman couldn't do it, no amount of money could do it. It had to be that area to show me what love, what the gospel love really was. I knew God love. I know agape. I know because I'm saved because of agape. But there was the human side, the humanity side of it that came in just like me, not supernatural, but came in naturally, wore pants like we wore, and those were the people that exhibited the love of God from that perspective. And yes, cookies and bananas and this stuff was great. It added to it, and the more we emptied the tray, it just kept piling up, multiplying. It's like the feeding of the 4,000 or 3,000 or the 5,000. It never ran short. And so that's another thing that the world don't do.